Hello learners, this is teacher Moses, I'm going to take you through science class 8. And so in science class 8 we have very many topics, but then we are going to measure on the first topic in class 8. The first topic in class 8 is human body, but then if we look at human body in class 8, I know very well that since class 1, 2, 3 up to class 8, you have been learning about human body. And so coming to class 8, we are going to learn human body, still the same topic, but now under the reproductive system. We are going to learn the reproductive system. Now when I say the reproductive system, then this takes us back to class 6 work. Because in class 6 work, we learned about the same topic, that is the reproductive system, but now we looked at the parts of the reproductive system. Now let's do a short review of what we did in class 6. In class 6, we learned about the reproductive system, and we said that we have the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. We learned about the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. When I talk of the male reproductive system, then this is a system specifically for the male. And when I talk of the female reproductive system, it is a system specifically for the female. So in class 6, you are taken through the male reproductive system and you looked at each part of the male reproductive system. Then again, you looked at the female reproductive system and the parts that makes up the female reproductive system. So we are going to do a review of that. And this is very important, learners, simply because when we are learning about reproductive system in class 8, these parts are going to be very much important. So, I welcome you. We do a short review of what you learned in class 6. So, learners, I want you to make a sketch on the male reproductive system, as well as a sketch on the female reproductive system. On your sketch, can you label all the parts of the male reproductive system as well as the parts of the female reproductive system? I'm giving you I think 20 seconds enough for that. You are starting with the male reproductive system and then the female reproductive system. So you are simply doing a sketch. I believe you have already started making a sketch on the male reproductive system. As you're making the sketch, you also label the parts because those parts I've said are going to be very much important. Now, I believe you already have the sketch on the male reproductive system. Now go to the female reproductive system, also make a sketch on the same and label the parts. I believe you are doing that. Make a sketch on that. Now, I believe the two diagrams are now ready. Let's now confirm. Let's start with the male reproductive system. Learners, I want you to confirm if the same part that we are going to mention, you have labeled them in your diagram. Number 1, we have the scrotum. The scrotum is the sac that covers the testes. So I believe the sac, you have labeled it the scrotum. Then inside the scrotum, we have the testes. So the testes, I believe you also have them, the two that are hanging. Remember, there is the scrotum, and then inside there we have the testes. I believe you have the testes. Then inside the testes, confirm that you have the epididymis. Epididymis. Confirm that you have the epididymis. Now, having confirmed that, then we have a tube from the testes. It is curving like that. It is a tube. That tube, I believe you have labeled it the sperm duct. Sperm duct. sperm duct from the testis as it is curving like that. That is the sperm duct. Remember, they are two. Having confirmed that, now from the sperm duct, confirm that you have the urethra. Remember, the urethra, as the sperm duct are going to join, they are now going to form the urethra. And now, after that, the urethra is now covered with the penis. That is on the male reproductive system. Let us now look at what you have on the female reproductive system. On the female reproductive system, learners, let's confirm the following parts. Part number 1, and I will start at the lower end, where we have the vagina, also called the birth canal. Then we go to the opening of the uterus, where we have the cervix. The cervix. I said from the vagina, we have the cervix. Now confirm that you have those two. Then we now move at the sac itself, where we have the uterus. So ensure that you've labeled it the uterus, also known as the womb. The uterus, also known as the womb. Now, after that, then we have the two tubes. That is the oviduct. Another name is the fallopian tube. Then after that, now we are going to the major part. The oviduct or the fallopian tube will now connect us to the ovary. And remember, there are two, the ovary. So we have the ovary, then we go to the oviduct, then we get the uterus, then we go to the cervix, then we have the vagina down there. Now, boys and girls, I want to join my hands, and if I join my hands here, you see these two are going to represent the ovaries. Then we have the line here and the line here. In between, we are going to have the oviduct, also known as the fallopian tube. Then we have inside here, you look at the lines in my hands. I believe if you join yours, you will also have the same thing. Inside here, we are going to have the uterus. Then down there we have the cervix. Then finally, we have the vagina. Learners, having gone through the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system, having done that short review, we now go to our main topic and subtopic of discussion. So, I want us to look at the meaning of the word reproduction. As you can see, we have it, I have it on the wall, the meaning of the word reproduction. And I'm going to take you through. I'm going to define the term reproduction. And as I give this definition, ensure that you get word by word. So I will give the definition at the first time. Then the second time, we are going to repeat word by word. So you need to be very keen and get the meaning of the word reproduction. So reproduction is the process by which living things give rise to living young ones. I repeat, reproduction is the process by which living things give rise to live young ones. Reproduction is the process by which living things give rise to live young ones. Now, having gone through the definition of reproduction, we want now to learn how this process takes place. Remember that at one point, you yourself, you have your mother and your father. And so, how did it happen that finally you are born and you are a baby, Maybe you are crying. You know that kind of sound that you produce when you're young. Now, we want to know what exactly happened. And so, therefore, I want to take you back to the part that the diagrams that you drew, and we now mention on the specific parts with a reason. I will mention this part, the ovary, and I will tell you why I am starting with the ovary. So, can you go to your diagram where you sketched and put a star on the ovary? Good. Let's go to the male reproductive system. I want you to put a star where the testis is. The testis. Now, learners, we have placed a star where the ovary is and where the testis is. Reason being, we want to look at now the reproductive cells in both male and female. Now, what we have here, we have the first diagram that I have is the sperms. The sperms. Now, what exactly is the sperm? The sperm is the male sex cell. The sperm is the male sex cell. The sperm is the male sex cell. And the reason as to why I told you to put a star at the testis is because that is where the sperms are produced. The sperms are the female sex cells and they are produced at the testis. Let's go to the female. Remember, you placed a star at the ovary. Now, at the ovary, we now have the female sex cell, which is called the ovum. So the ovum is the female sex cell, which is produced at the ovary. Boys and girls, can you give me the male sex cell and where it is produced? Very good. And so when you talk of the reproduction, then we now have to look at the two sex cells, both the male and the female sex cells. So having gone through that, now let's look at the first thing that we have, and that is fertilization. Fertilization. Learners, we also want to define or to give the meaning of the word fertilization. Remember, we had given the meaning of the word reproduction, and now we have fertilization. Therefore, again, be keen to get the meaning of the word fertilization, because this is the point where you are going to be tested. This is the exam. Now, fertilization is the union of the male and the female sex cell. I repeat. Fertilization is the union of the male and the female sex cell. Look here, when I talk of the union, this is the female sex cell and this is the male sex cell. So when I talk of the union, it means they come together and join and become one thing. So the union, the meeting of the two to become one thing. I repeat, and after repeating, you are going to give me the meaning of the word fertilization. I repeat, I have said fertilization is the union of the male and the female sex cell. The last time, fertilization is the union of the male and the female sex cell. Learners, can you give me the meaning of the word fertilization? 1 second is enough for that. Start. Good. Fertilization is the union of the male sex cell and the female sex cell. So the union, the meeting to become one. Now, fertilization being the union, look at the diagram that you have. I have the male and the female. Now, how does this take place? Let me explain for you how the union takes place. We have during sexual intercourse. During the sexual intercourse, we have the penis which will deposit the sperms at the vagina. Then they are going to swim and they go to the oviduct, also known as the fallopian tube. When they are there, remember the sperms, they are going to go to the fallopian tube or the oviduct. The ovary will remove the ovum, and then it is also going to be at the oviduct. When the two meet at the oviduct, they unite, the union, and then we talk of fertilization. And so, boys and girls, where does fertilization take place? Very good. Fertilization takes place at the oviduct, which is also known as the fallopian tube. And so therefore, what exactly is formed immediately after fertilization? When these two join, what will they form? They will form something called a zygote. Z-Y-G-O-T-E. Zygote. Now, that is where life begins. The zygote. Remember, there are two questions there, boys and girls. Question number 1, somebody will ask you, where does fertilization take place? Another person who wants to confuse you will ask, where is the zygote formed? Remember that where the zygote is formed is where fertilization takes place. So the answer, boys and girls, becomes what? Very good. The answer is the oviduct or the fallopian tube. Now, so we have the term which is the fusion. So this fusion, what exactly it is? Let me take you back where we talked about fertilization. Now, when we are giving the meaning of the word fertilization, we talked about the union, the two meeting. Now that is called the fusion. So the fusion is the union of the male and the female sex cell. So in other words, fertilization and fusion is the same thing. Fusion is the union of the male and the female sex cells. So this process takes place at the fallopian tube, also known as the oviduct. And so therefore, learners, we have done the introduction of the reproduction in human being. And so we defined, or we gave the meaning of the word reproduction. we said is the process by which living things give rise to live young ones. And then we also looked at the male sex cell and the female sex cell and where they are produced. And then we went ahead and looked at the meaning of the word fertilization and how it takes place. So therefore now, we have the zygote. The next thing that we now need to learn about is what now follows that. After the zygote, what next? And so, learners, I would like to give you time to synthesize what we have gone through. And so, can you go through what we have learned in this lesson and ensure that you absorb everything that we have learned in this lesson? This is because it is going to form the basis of our next lesson. So number one, what is the meaning of reproduction? What is the meaning of reproduction? Number two, what is the male sex cell? Number three, where are the female sex cells produced? Where are the female sex cells produced? Number four, the union of the male sex cell and the female sex cell is called dash. The union of the male sex cell and the female sex cell is called dash. Our next number. Where does fertilization take place? Where does fertilization take place? Where does fertilization take place? And the last question. Draw a male and the female sex cell. Draw a male and the female sex cell and label the parts. Up to that point, my good learners, I would like us to stop it at that point, having gone through the introduction of that topic. And so in our next lesson, we are going to pick it from there. This was Teacher Moses, a science teacher, class 8. I encourage you to ensure that you have a notebook and a pen, and also invite your friends so that we may learn and progress as we prepare for the exam that is ahead of us. So therefore, we have come to the end of our lesson today. Bye-bye, Teacher Moses.